Alright guys, so back at the next of our Season 9 updates, this time we're going to go through the Tavern tier spells. Um, the first change is on Tavern tier 1, we have this new Alliance Flag spell, where before we had Pointy Arrow, which was a 1-cost give 4 attack, we now have a slight modification of that you have the ability to give either 4 or 4 health. Um, Most of the time early, like, it's just a upgrade on the Fortify. Fortify does give taunt, so there is like maybe one stat worth of value there. Um, Generally, where you're gonna find this is the most valuable is if you have like a 2-cost hero power that generates a minion, you can do that plus the Alliance flag and have just a lot of stats on turn one. Generally, though, this isn't going to be that relevant later in the game. Going to the Tavern tier spell, I don't see any new modifications here. I think we're still going to consistently have the problem of if you get a strike oil on turn three, you're kind of screwed. Generally on turn three, you can do like a 1-cost spell roll and buy a minion. But if you have a strike oil, like you're just kind of stuck because if you do the roll and get like a 2-cost spell, like then you're just buying one minion on turn three and you're just really far behind at that point. Tavern 3 spells, we have a couple new modifications. So first one is this new spell Gem Day, which is a 1-cost. Choose one. Your blood gems give an extra +1 attack this game or +1 health. So this is kind of, we'll talk about Cold Wars a little bit, in their own video, but they got rid of Piper and the Jazzer, so this is kind of the way to now buff your gems, is this one Tavern spell. So be kind of interesting. I'm assuming it's only going to be around in Quill War lobbies, but let's hold off talking about this one until we get to Quill Wars because there might be some other side synergies with it. Continuing on the choose one effect, and we're going to see that there's a lot of these choose one related cards, and that might even need to be its own video at the end of going through everything of like all the choose one cards. But time management, choose one, give your minions +2/+2, or at the start of your next turn, give your minions +4/+4. So obviously you're gonna like ideally be able to do the +4/+4. You're in a strong position. I think this is mostly though going to be played off of some type of like spell generation type effects, and if you're trying to stabilize, getting +2/+2 now is much more important. Um, it's going to be interesting because Tavern Tier 3 is going to be a little bit different now because before with trinkets, turn 6 was like Tavern Tier 3, and at that point you kind of had like stuff like Natural Blessing as a way to stabilize, or like Fleeting Vigor as a one-turn stabilize, where this is kind of another version of that. If you think about it, like if you had the choice between Natural Blessing, am I willing to do 1 gold now? Like let's just you're normally playing a bunch of minions of the same tribe, just especially in the early game because you're trying to get as many synergies as possible, and that's normally the best way to get stats. But like if you play one like a 3 calls for the same ability now, like you're essentially like paying 1 gold to have this second option, right? So in general, I think you're gonna try to do the 4/4 buff. If you have it generated though, you might just do the 2/2 to try and stabilize. Tavern Tier 4. So first one is they mess with Boon of Beetles, and this one we'll probably talk about a little bit more when we go over Beast. But they changed it where right now it summons one 10/10 beetle, where it summons two 2/2 beetles 2 times. So really you get 8/8 stats with the new one, but it's a bunch of like summons at once. So having multiple summons is good because it can take off things like Divine Shields. Also, it's going to get all the buffs, and it's going to look like Beasts are going to have a lot more of these like beetle buff effects. So we'll talk about that one a little bit more when we go over Beasts, but just I guess as a straight up, it's a slight nerf. However, um, I guess the one other thing that's kind of weird is it has a new interaction with Toxic Tumbleweed, where it used to be like the Boona Beetles would summon. Now, if you play 6 minions, the Tumbleweed will attack, and then it will still wait for one minion to die before you summon because you don't have space to summon until there's 2 minions that are dead. Next one is Boundless Potential. Choose one, discover a minion of your tier or a tavern spell of a tier higher. So what this is kind of good for is Tavern Tier 5 has a couple of these like expensive spells like Eyes and Golden Touch. And what you can do is get those potentially for cheaper. You can get Eyes, which costs 6 gold for now 4 gold. Also, you figure that these better spells, like if they were down a tavern tier, they might cost something like 1 more gold. Like it might be worth 4 gold for armor stash if it was a Tavern tier 4 because you're able to get it earlier in the game as an example. So I think generally you're probably gonna want to do the Tavern tier spell if you get this off of a generated effect. Um, I think four, on four you probably use it to get a five. If you're later in the game though, on Tavern tiers 5 or 6, you probably use it to discover like a 6 drop or something like that. Um, I generally like if you have the ability to choose a 6 drop and discover a 6 drop, like that's worth a minion, and 4 gold is essentially 3 gold for late game. Same. Marauder's Contract's a new spell. 2 gold, steal a random pirate from the tavern. So you do save a gold here. Let's assume like there's a pirate you would want to buy in the shop, and you have this spell. You save 1 gold. Now it's probably random with which pirate it gets. So it's potentially a 50-50 save a gold, or you have to sell it, and it actually costs 1 more when you sell the pirate, assuming the pirate doesn't have any type of added effect. But this is a pretty good, like, if you get it off of a generated effect, you can kind of, like, use it to steal some type of an amalgam type unit, or get, just a pirate for cheaper this way. And the rest of these look the same. Spiteful Scale, it's going to be dependent on what new Nagas get added, so we'll look at that one probably later as well. So for Tavern Tier 5, I think the main thing that I'm seeing is they moved Contracted Corpse from Tavern Tier 4 to 5, and this is actually a really big hit to Undead. So Undead minions had a lot of Tavern Tier 4, something like a Nubarak or the Mummifier, where you could stabilize really well on Tavern Tier 4, and Corpse was a spell there that would help you stabilize. Because, a lot of the undead units are death rattles. So moving this to Tavern Tier 5 is actually, in my opinion, going to be a pretty big nerf to the undead comps. Everything else here looks relatively the same. I think kind of a noteworthy thing is butchering is probably going to be a little bit worse because there's no trinkets. So it was a little bit better to take this when you could like have the butchering spell as well, because generally you were getting like an undead unit that you would butcher, and then you could use a second butcher to kill it, and so it was a little bit worthwhile to like take it just so you wouldn't have to like waste gold that way. And then Tavern 6 looks like they have a couple new ones. So Vandral's Fortune. Discover or choose one minion. It has both effects combined. I'm probably going to look at this more with Quill Wars. I just did a kind of a sneak peek, and it looks like Quill Wars are the main choose one card. So we'll look at that one a little bit more with those. Knockout Wisdom Ball. Your next 2 refreshes are helpful. Two less. Two left. Um, so helpful is kind of a keyword back from when like the Wisdom Ball was like a quest reward kind of thing that was very common. You can still get with Sardinarius, but Denarius is bad. Um, but I don't know if this is actually worth it. I think it's a good effect if you get it off of like the panda generating spells kind of thing. I don't know if you would necessarily like roll into it and ever take this as a spell. You might get it in like the late game if you're just trying to like triple units, because like some of the good effects are like it copies all minions on your board, or will give you minions that synergize with your board. You might use it in the late game to like find Leroy's, because one of them is like get a bunch of like utility units. So there's kind of that kind of thing. I see you picking up maybe in like the top 2, top 4 of a lobby. I don't see you taking this on like turn 8, turn 9 when you first get to Tavern Tier 6 and are trying to stabilize. It's really not that great for stabilizing. It's more for trying to get a high roll. And then the last one is this Tavern Tier 6, the Road Less Traveled. Choose one, get a random Tier 6 minion, or get 2 random Tier 5 minions. I think something to kind of compare this to is it's very similar to this Boundless Potential spell, right? Like this one has the Discover a minion of your tier. If you're on turn 6, you're getting a 6-drop. This one's giving you a random 6-drop, which is just really bad. Like you can almost get that for Robust Evolution on a 5-drop, right? You'll see sometimes if you like whiff your 5-drop, you might pick up this spell to just get a random 6, and hopefully you tempo out that way. So I don't see you ever doing this first get a random tier 6 effect. I honestly think they should have made it like discover a tier 6 if they wanted it to be kind of balanced. However, the second get 2 random tier 5 minions is really good. One, you could potentially find a tier 5 minion that's like synergistic with your comp, let's say a Bran or a Titus or something like that, that you need to like, get a comp going. The other option is like, let's say you play a Brand, Panda, and discover this spell. Well, you're now going gold even on just your first spell, and your second spell doesn't necessarily need to be a gold one. You can take a more stabilized spell or something that gives some other type of side effect. So getting two minions from one spell is definitely pretty strong. Not to mention that they made it so like I don't know. Like you can potentially go infinite with like Panda and this. Something I'm noticing, some of like the key stuff that they've kind of gotten rid of. There's no longer Buddy spell. They didn't move that around. And Buddies was kind of a way for like games to go crazy. That's kind of the main one that I guess I'm noticing that stands out as they didn't move it and they removed it. Unfortunately, they don't have a good like patch notes for like how things have changed at this current time. But Buddy spell being out is gonna make it so Bran, which is already kind of hurting in the current meta, even worse. And we'll see if they make Battlecry have some type of new synergies with some of the tribes as we go into those. But anyways, this is all the Tavern spells. Let me know in the comments if there's something that you think I missed that I should have highlighted on more. If there's some other, big spell that you think I'm missing that's like game changing. Um, Anyways, and otherwise, feel free to leave a like. I really do appreciate, just people, knowing that the content is somewhat useful for them. And then, like I've said in some of the previous videos, I'm going to be pushing out a lot of these just guide reviews for the upcoming Season 9 patch as we get notes out for them. So feel free to subscribe for the next like 2 weeks or something. And then as I go back to some of the more like guide content for actual gameplay videos, feel free to unsubscribe. You won't hurt my feelings. But this kind of video is going to be what I crank out for the next couple weeks. So, anyways, good luck. Good luck on your climbs if you're still playing in the current season. Hopefully, you get to the leaderboard or whatever rank you're trying to get to. See ya. Bye.